Hello. Yes, so this recording is about the the DevOps project. This is an end-to-end project which I have already completed it. I'm just recording this for future references. So I'm just gonna start it with a diagram. So this is basically when a developer writes a code and it pushed to the GitHub. Okay, so these are basically several steps which I will be recording in this video. I have performed it. I will also add a link. If any one of you wanna do this project, you can refer that link from my post. Okay, so now first, if developer pushes a code, so this Jenkins basically gets the code from the GitHub, and once the Jenkins has the code, it further compiles it and runs some several unit test cases on that. Once that is done, it's time to check the quality of the code. So we are using SonarQube for that, and SonarQube will publish the results in the SonarQube server. We'll be configuring. I think I've already configured it, but I'll be showing like the report on the SonarQube server. So then there is a Trivi. The Trivi is a vulnerability scanner. This basically checks the code and scans any of the vulnerability and also publish a report. This Trivi will send a report over the email, this mail, and then further once all the scans and the quality checks are done, it will publish, and first will build the app and build. So this app is a Java code which I will show later in the video, and then this once it's built and packaged, it will be published to the Nexus repository. Once the Nexus repository is being pushed, we will create a Docker image out of it. We'll build a Docker image and tag that image. After the Docker image is built, it will also run a Trevi scan. This is, as I mentioned, it's a vulnerability scan on this Docker image as well. And once it's done, we'll push the image to the Docker hub. And from there, we'll also deploy, we'll set up a Kubernetes cluster. And on the cluster, we'll deploy this application. And this complete pipeline flow is also integrated with the Gmail as well, using Gmail app authentication. And if it's failed or if it's successfully completed, we'll get the notification on my Gmail account as well. I will also see how to run the kube audit scan on the Kubernetes cluster to check the security on that. Okay, so let's go like step by step. First, I'll show the phases of this, and then I'll show the repository which we need to create. Okay, so if I first, let's go to the phases. So there are basically four phases. If you're seeing on the first phase, first we have to create a certain VM. Or so I'm like utilizing the AWS cloud for that. Then the Kubernetes setup, then Jenkins setup, then Nexus, and then there is a SonarQube setup as well. So let's go one by one. First, I have like created a few VMs. Ignore the monitoring one for now. This will I'll come on it on the later part of this video. First, I've set up like a master, then there is a worker, and then there is one more worker. So right now one worker is stopped because uh, there is like we don't need to utilize it. But if you see, so this is the master node. Okay, so I've already set up the cluster here. You see here the one of the node. This is the worker, this is the control plane, this is the worker one, which is currently in ready, and the other one is not ready state. So it's already cluster is set up. If you see, we'll see. Oh, this in the kube system namespace. If you see here, yeah, this is in the init state because I think the other node. Yeah, this is not running because the other node is in. So this is basically a network, Calico is a network, and the other node is not up right now. And rest everything, kube proxy scheduler, everything is up. Okay, so this is the Kubernetes cluster we have set up. Then there is an app server. App server VM is yeah. So all these VMs I have set up manually, but app is one. I think this one. So this Jenkins monitoring. Then there's a Nexus. Then there is an Outlook. All these VMs. I'll show you the Jenkins one. So this VM is already set up, and I believe have Jenkins is already running on this. Okay. So now let's go back to the phases. So this phase, if I open it for you guys, so this, like, it says everything, like console, navigate to, launch instance type. I've used like 1 to 20, 22, and there is storage and tags, and these are the specific ports which I had open being a part of this video. If I want to show you, let's go to any VM. I think I have to go like this. Then let's go to the master in the security. Yeah, this is the security group. If I check the inbound rules, so you see here, like 44364, this 443 is for HTTPS communication. This is for 6443 is for the Kubernetes cluster, and then there are some, ephemeral ports for the Kubernetes as well. Then this is for the SSH. 22 is for the SMTP, and the 465 is for SMTPS for the secured SMTP. Then this 3000 to 10,000 ports are required to run various monitoring solutions, because they normally utilize like 3000, 9090, 8080, certain, then for Jenkins as well, 8080, certain ports are there. So that's why I open a complete range. And then there is a HTTP port. Apart from this, nothing, there is no port is allowed, such as there is no ICMP is allowed, nothing else. So I'm just like trying to make it as secure as possible. Okay, so now let's check the other phase. I mean, review it, launch it, then keep here, and that's it. I've used MoveXterm for this. Then if I go to next, then there is a Kubernetes setup. It's a simple setup. We just used first installed Docker and certain dependencies for the Kubernetes. You see here it's kube ADM, kubelet, and kubelet is installed on all the nodes, on the master and all the worker nodes. Then we just initialized the kube ADM on the master node, utilized this pod network 10.244.0.0. There is one thing which I want to share here is, so once it is like initialized, we joined the two nodes. I don't have that command in front of me as of now, but it's something kube ADM join. Then there is certain IP address. You can do that. So configure a Kubernetes cluster on the master node. So these are certain, like, we just copying, the admin config to the config file, and then changing the permission, the ownership. Then the Calico is the networking solution which we deployed here, and then we've also deployed the ingress controller on the master node. So it basically deploys as a deployment. So now there is one thing. So after all the steps are done, I was facing an issue. The issue was, so when I deployed like containerd, it did not deploy the config.toml of the containerd, and because of that, my pods were not stable. Because let me just show you. I think that's, yeah. So issues with the instability of the Kubernetes cluster. I think I've opened that in. Yeah, let me just quickly get that. So, yeah, this is, I've also mentioned it. So yes, so as I mentioned that it was the configuration file was not properly deployed, because we have to set up. So to fix that problem, when my cluster was not stable enough, I had to manually install the containerd binaries one more time. Yes. So if you see here, it's just unzipping the container, starting the containerd service. Yeah, I think this website is not good. So this just showing the status, and the most important thing is, in the yeah this in this file, if you see here, this config.toml, it is basically searching, basically changing this systemd C group false to true in this config. That is the required, and after that we have to just restart the containerd, and everything, or the container setup would be successfully completed after that. This is the, just a learning which I was sharing, maybe for the future me as well. Then I would say setup of the Jenkins. It's like just set up, install the Java, then set up, install the Jenkins. So on the Jenkins VM, I've also installed the Docker because it will be required future. Then on the Nexus, on the Nexus, it's just I have like set up the Docker in that first. Yeah, and then once the Docker is done, because I'm running the Nexus as a Docker container, so this is the default port. Like this is the port on the node, and this is the container port. So this is the latest version. So I've run this in the detached mode. The name is this. Okay. Then the same thing for the Sonar Cube. Like Sonar Cube package the Docker first, and also running the Sonar Cube. So this is the Sonar. This is the Sonar Cube server. It's not the Sonar Cube scanner. I'll tell the difference. So it is the default port is 9000, and we're using the LTS community version. It's free. So this is the first phase. The second phase was like simply just set up a repository and push the code in that. So this is the repository, like a board game repository in my GitHub, and this is like in this has a Docker file, a deployment service, and a prompt for the dependencies file. I'll explain this one. Then in the third phase, I have created the whole CI/CD pipeline. This is the most important part. And I mean, if you see here, so there are certain plugins which we have to install, like Eclipse Tamurin. This is required if we need a multiple JDKs. Then there is a pipeline Maven integration, config file provider. This is required for if you want to configure any XML files to, let's say in my case, I've used it to interact it with the Nexus. Okay, then we have configured the Sonar Cube scanner, Kubernetes CLI, Kubernetes Docker, Docker pipeline step, and there are some other plugins as well which I have installed. If I show you, yeah, these are all the plugins like Eclipse, so all the same which I just talked about. And then there is a Maven integration was missed. Yeah, Trevi was installed in this way. So this was installed on the Jenkins virtual machine, like just mm, with the install this package in the Trevi list. I've added this path, and then just get installed with this. Okay. So now let's get back. So this is the third phase, and the fourth phase, the last phase, that would be monitoring. But I'll come to the monitoring part in the end. So now I would like, let's go to the Jenkins. So these all the Jenkins. Okay, so I think it's not expired. Okay, so I've already created the pipeline. I've already fixed the issues which I have I've got at the time of. So let me just take you to the pipeline directly. So in the config, let me just take you to the few the credentials which I had set up. Like first, let me just take you to the credentials. So there was a lot of integrations here. Let me just show you. If you see here, first there is a SonarCube integration because we need a SonarCube server. Yeah, we need a SonarCube server for sending the report. Then we need an integration with the Nexus repository. Then we need an integration with the Docker. Then we need an integration with the Kubernetes. So all these integrations are required, and with the integration with the GitHub as well, because all the integrations are required. So we need an authentication mechanism for them for that as well. Okay, so let's say for GitHub, we utilized the token, the personal access token, which I have generated using from the GitHub. Then from the Docker Hub, I've utilized my credentials, then the Kubernetes credential. And for the Sonar Cube, there is a token I have generated. Like if I show you, and then the Sonar Cube. Sorry, this is the Nexus Sonar Cube in the administration. Like for in the user, like my user is the administrator. So I have generated a token by coming here, and by there I can just create the token and utilize there. Then there is a quality gate thing as well. Quality gates is nothing if like there are certain conditions on the new code which has to be satisfied. So we have utilized that as well. And for this quality gate, this is a kind of post request coming from this SonarCube server to the Jenkins server, and this is like configured as a webhook. And in the webhook, I have provided the Jenkins server IP address and the port and the URI, like SonarCube-webhook. Okay, so I'll show you in the pipeline where I have configured this. Okay, so I think that's all for the credential. The Sonar token, I have already shown the Sonar token, then the Docker credentials, and yeah, this thing, the mail credentials. This is I have utilized the Gmail, app credentials. It's like it's a different from the normal on the credentials which we use to log in. So it's a separate thing. So I've utilized that to publish a notification on the Gmail in case of the pipeline completion or the failure. Okay. So in the manage Jenkins, I have also configured certain tools. Plugins I've already discussed in the start. Yeah. So in the tools, if I see, so all the once the plugins are installed, there are certain tools I have configured. Let's say for the JDK installation, I have utilized JDK 17. The version is 17.9.9. Then for the scanner installation. Now, so there are two things. One thing is SonarQube scanner and SonarQube server. So SonarQube server is basically which I hosted. If you see, this is the SonarQube server. Okay, this is something where I have like hosted a SonarQube container, like this SonarQube container on this port. So this is responsible for receiving the report. But to run the scan, I have installed a tool on the Jenkins itself, and this is the scanner. This will scan the code and publish the report to the SonarQube. Okay, and then we have the Maven installation. This Maven is I've utilized 3.6.1 Docker installation as well. I've just used the latest version of it. So these are the certain tools. Now, if I take it to the system, like global settings in the system, the number of executors I have two, and in the system I have configured my Jenkins URL, which is running on the default port 8080. I have not. This is not running as a container. It is running as the normal service on the Jenkins server. Now, not in the system, we also have to configure this on RCube servers, as I mentioned. So I have utilized this is running as a container, and this is the IP address 9000. Like if you want to see it, yeah, and the even if I go here, yeah, on 237.11, this is the SonarCube server, and on the 9000 port it is running, which I just showed. Then I think in this there is only one thing required, the Prometheus. So these are some metrics of the Prometheus, which I will discuss in the later section of this video. And then I think in this also we have used the extended email notification. This is the default smtp.gmail.com, the SMTP server. For the Google, we have utilized SSL or SMTPS, and in this I've provided my credentials. I've utilized the SSL. We also have to configure the email notification. So smtp.gmail is similar, and in the advanced we have to put the same thing again, SSL port, everything. So this is the system settings for Jenkins. Then I think everything is done. Yeah, there is one more thing, which is managed files. So this managed files is required for the Nexus, because if I go inside, if check the file, in this I have provided the information about my two repositories, like Maven releases and Maven snapshots. In this I've also put my admin username and password for my repository. And then there is one more thing which and related to this. Okay, now let me just show you the code, because that is one thing which is left here. Yeah, so in the code, if I just show you the pom.xml, this pom.xml has all the dependencies which is this Java code required, and there is a section which I have added later, which is like the repositories, the two repositories like Maven releases, and this is basically the my Nexus port and IP address. This is my Nexus server. If you This is my Nexus server. This is also running as a container. Okay. This is a Docker file. So Docker file is running this application on port, exposing it on port 8080. I think that's what important as of now. Then deployment file. This is nothing, just a deployment and a service. So it's the name is board game deployment. The two replicas are required. and the image which I'll show you, will be creating and pushing it to the Docker hub. The container port is 8080, and similarly the host port is also 8080, and the service is being exposed on this port. Okay, and now let's go to the pipeline itself, the board game. So I have run the last build, but let me just first show you the exact configuration. So I have kept the maximum number of builds as 2. This is because it's a kind of a best practice. We should remove the other rest all. Now if I start explaining the pipeline. Yes. So this pipeline, first, it's a Groovy script agent. We don't have any other, just one agent, so that's why I've specified any. In the tools, we've specified the number of tools I've used, like JDK and the Maven, which this is just a name which I've provided them. And just one thing which I want to mention here is these tools, when we install the plugins, then we configure them in the tools section. So when I run this pipeline, this will be automatically installed and configured on the Jenkins server itself. Okay, then there is an environment variable scanner home. This is a Sonar scanner I have provided as an environment. The first stage would be git checkout. As I mentioned, it will check out the code from the git repository, which I mentioned I have created. Then to compile the code, I have utilized Maven to compile with a Java code. Then to test it, there are certain test cases present in that repository itself. Okay. Uh, Further, as I mentioned, the once the code is compiled and being tested, we ran a Trivy scan. Trivy scan is using Trivy FSSL file system, and then it is generating a report in this file in the format, in this format, and output is stored in this file. And this is like dot means at this place, which is current the location of the code. And then we are running the SonarQube analysis. In this we are utilizing the SonarQube scanner, and scanner is running on this project name board game and the key and the certain binary. So this is all environment with like SonarQube environment sonar. Okay, further, once I've mentioned, like I've utilized the quality gate. This it is coming as a webhook request. So to authentication from the Jenkins to SonarQube, it is using the Sonar token, and for the webhook is coming back to that's a post request coming back here. And this, I think, already it says the last delivery on at the time when I ran this code. Okay, now once if everything is like correct, then we'll build the application using the Maven package and we'll publish it to the Nexus. If you see, it utilizes JDK7, Maven 3, and traceability is true. If you just go to the Nexus, you see here in the releases, we'll see that the application is being published. This is like the XML Maven and the database project, and this has all basically this has a jar file. Okay, then once it is published to Nexus, we will create a Docker image and tag it with this boardgame.latest. Once, and we'll run a scan again, the Trivy image scan. This is the name of the file it will create, and you see it here, like on this image we'll run a scan and in the format of table. If I show you like what kind of a scan it gives the output, I'll just show you first. Yeah, this is a kind of this is an image output it is giving. I mean, this needs to a bit of the refinement, but I think for this demo purpose, this is totally fine. So this is like it ran the scans on all the files inside the image, and it provides these kind of CV information and the basically the file information, whatever the present in the Docker image. Okay, so now once the scan is done, we'll push the Docker image to the Docker hub. It is utilizing the Docker credentials. And once it is pushed to Docker, then we'll utilize the kubectl apply hyphen deployment service. This file is present in the repository, and this will create the a deployment onto our, let me show you onto the Kubernetes cluster, like Kubernetes get deployments hyphen n. So this is the deployment, the bottom deployment which was deployed by this, and you can also see the ports SVC. So if you see, this is the IP like 191, and the port is 30366. Yeah, it's when it was deployed. Yeah, this is the cluster IP. This is not the actual IP. This is the IP of the worker node. Like if you want to be double sure, like this, if I go here, instances, the worker node is the first one is running. So you see 230.38. So 230.38. Yeah, on the port is, this is the node port, you can say 3036, and this is, you can log in, a lot of things you can do on this. You can add a review here. This is just an Java web app. Okay. Yeah, so this is the deployment is done. Once the deployment will go back to the Jenkins, and to check the deployment status, we'll see, we're checking it like getting the ports and getting the services if that's work. And at the end of it, there is a post which will run always in case if even it's success or if it fails, it will send a notification, a color coded notification to the Gmail, which we have utilized the app Gmail authentication for that. And I've like mentioned my email address here, mekaran040@gmail.com, and it will be sent by jenkins.example.com. If I show you this, what kind of notification it is sending, yeah. So if you see here, it is replied to this from, okay. If you reply, you'll go reply to this jenkinsexample.com. Yeah, so this is the report attachment. Yeah, this is the attachment that is coming in. You can like attach multiple files or attachment pattern. This is I just like attached one file here. It could be multiple. Yeah, I think that's all the, I'll also like, let me just take you through the logs. Yeah, so first of all, these two artifacts, it is like it published. One is jar file, then there is a pom file, and this is the repository. Then if I take it the console output, I mean, it's a long output, so let me just take it to the end of it. Here you see it's sending an email to this, and it's just giving the commands output which we ran. Then the one I mean, it's like sending, like downloading the Docker client, then pushing the Docker image, creating, you'll see the like it's running the image scan on the format, that, and everything. So this is like everything is covered now. Yeah, there now let's come to the monitoring part. The trivia is done. Yes, so this is the monitoring part now. So monitoring for this is a very important part. Okay, now if I show you, yeah, monitoring is a good part. So I have deployed like a Prometheus, Grafana, then the black box exporter, then I have utilized the node exporter, then the cube audit. I think I've already mentioned it. If I don't remember. Like, so cube audit, this is a tool for the cluster. Okay, let's say if we want to check the, like, is a command line tool, go package to audit the Kubernetes cluster for various different security concerns, such as run as a known you use a read-only file system, drop scary capabilities. Don't, I mean, for all these things you can utilize the kube edit tool. It is like a very simple tool. You don't need to do nothing much on this. You see on all the, let's say this is the component status on the control, so it runs a scan on that. It's a namespace. It runs the So this is the report by Cube Audit. So I run it like, let me just show you. Yeah. So Cube Audit, I've installed it. This is a binary and I've just like moved it to the bin. Then I've run on the all, I mean, it means all the clusters I only had one. So if you see, let's say it ran on the namespace, then this is, I mean, this is a best practice, or you can say the error. This is for the administrators or for the infrastructure engineers who can like work on this. So using default ingress and egress network policy. So it runs a scan like this. Now for the monitoring, I would say I've created an virtual machine first. I've installed the Promise using a binary, and to run the Prometheus, it's very simple. We just need to run it like /Prometheus, and this is for the running at the backend. Once it is running on the port 9090. I'll take you to the Prometheus. This is the Prometheus. It's like you can also see the alerts if there are any. I've also forgot to show you the report which was generated by the Sonar Cube. So this is the Sonar Cube scanner, which is published the report to the board game. So this is it says all the conditions are passed, and these are the issues which was identified on that. Like there are 131 issues, and if you like code smell, you can check this is a major thing. It's a blocker or whatever. I mean, if you click on it, you'll see you'll see like if it also recommends, but how you can uh, cure that or clear those issues. This is a report which it was a Sonar Cube scanner and send it to the server. So now in the Prometheus, I was mentioning like if you go to the status, you'll see the targets. So these are the targets defined by like certain probes defined by me. Like this is the endpoint of the website. I'll show first how to define. So first we define, like install the Prometheus and we run it. Then we have the Grafana. This is the Grafana dashboard, and let me show you how to deploy the Grafana. Once it's running, so let's install Grafana. Grafana is just go to the Grafana website and install these like utilities, the Grafana utility from there. And once the logs, Grafana will give you the command to start it, which would be like systemctl start Grafana server. Once it is started, so you see it's running on the 2070. And if you just netstack 2070, so you'll see that it's running on the port 3000. So this is the Grafana dashboard. By default is admin. You can change it. Then once we have the promises in Grafana, we are installing black box exporter for endpoint monitoring. So black box exporter is there to monitor the endpoint. Will be monitoring the endpoint as well as the node, the Jenkins node. Okay, first again we just on the monitoring server we have installed the black box endpoint. Once it is installed, you can see it will just run in the backend, and it's running on the 9115. It will be it's visible like that. This is like the probes are there. So now Prometheus to get the black box thing, we need to pass the black box as a in the Prometheus configuration. So there is a configuration file in the Prometheus which is like prometheus.eml. So we need to find for pass this job name black box. And if you see here, we have passed this 915, the black box exporter, the real host name, the server where the black box is running. Okay, if it's the same, like in my case, it's the monitoring server, the same server, it's past the URL, like the 18.204.5.88, 915 is the port for the black box. I am also monitoring the targets. One is the prometheus.io, just to get some matrices, like, and then there is one more which, if you see 3036, is a node port. So this is our application, and this basically is the location. If you see here, like inside the Prometheus the folder, you'll see the prometheus.yml. So once if we change it, we added the black box job and we have to restart it. We kill it and restart it. Once we restart, we can see the probes we added here. Like if I see here like endpoint, like if you see the up, so the one is the black box and one is the Prometheus. Black box which basically has like two. Now Yes, if I go to the data, so now a Prometheus is installed. Now we want to see everything in a GUI manner. So we need to add this, black box, which we configured in the Prometheus into as a data source in the Grafana. Okay. So if I go to the Grafana, I have like I can new dashboard or import dashboard. I have to, if I see here, like in the Grafana, I have to go to the data sources. I have to add a data source. First of all, I have to pick the Prometheus from here, and then I have provided the URL of the Prometheus. If you see here, Prometheus is running on the 9090. Provided the URL. So now this is successfully queried and it's saved. So in the Prometheus, I need to now import it. So I have created a data source. Now I will import the dashboard. So these are the pre-built dashboards which are available on the internet. I'll need just black box Grafana dashboard. I searched it on the internet, and in this I'll get an ID. Let's say the ID is 7587. So in the dashboard, I have just added that ID 7587. So it will get all the matrices from the black box and from the Prometheus. I just need to, yeah. So here I will just select the Prometheus, and then I'll see it here. It will give me all the Prometheus black box exporter, HTTP duration, HTTP probe duration. You see the status code and everything I can see on my Prometheus black box. Now there is one more thing. Let's say I also want to monitor a node level matrices. So node level, let's monitor the Jenkins server. Okay. Now on the Jenkins server, first of all, I have to install. There is a Prometheus metrics. Okay. So this is a plugin. First I have installed it, and once it is installed, there is a node exporter. Node exporter is to utilize. It is being utilized for to get the node matrices. Okay. So first I'll just install it by download it by wget, then I will install it the same way I have installed it. This is a Jenkins server now, and this is running on 9100. I can like see it in the here, yeah, 9100. So just to verify, node exporter is running like this. Okay, now so on the Jenkins in the systems, we can, let's say, configure. If you want to configure, let's say, just want to collect this, just want to collect the node status, so we can configure on the Jenkins system as well. But as I mentioned, to make it run with the Prometheus, we need to modify the promises.ml. We need to add one more job. Now this time we added like two jobs. One is for the Jenkins and one is for the node exporter. In the node exporter, we have provided the IP address of the monitoring server and the 910, and then there is a for the Jenkins, provided just the IP address. Yeah, this for the Jenkins server, and in my scenario, this time they both are same because I have installed the node exporter on the Jenkins server itself. I've just changed the port. This 8080 is for Jenkins and 910 is for the node exporter. Okay, so changed it, kill the process, and then rerun the Prometheus. And when I go to Prometheus, so I will be seeing all the. Let me just show you as well. So in this, I am seeing the black box, I'm seeing the Jenkins, and I'm seeing the node exporter. So all the matrices are there. Now again, I need to add a data source on the Grafana for the Prometheus. So if I just go home, data source is already there. So I've like added two. This is for the black box. So I need to create a new database. Oh, sorry, the dashboard. As I mentioned, dashboards are the already available on the internet. We just need to look for the ID, and with ID is 1860. I have searched for node exporter Grafana dashboard. So 1860, I've go to the Grafana, I've added it. And if I just show you, so this is the node, like the CPU, this is the Jenkins. They're monitoring the Jenkins node. This 237.11.9100 is the node exporter port and running on the Jenkins server. CPU busy, system load, RAM used, swap used, root file system used, and network traffic. As of now, there is no, but you can see the CPU memory, network disk. So there are a lot of matrices which can be monitored from the Grafana. So this all was fetched by the node exporter. I think that's it for this one.